I tested every single Canon camera to help you find the best ones. And I realized every camera is made for a specific type of shooter. And if you don't know exactly what to look for, you can easily choose the wrong one. And the newest Canon cameras aren't always the best ones. So in this video, I'm breaking down the best Canon cameras for different types of shooters and the best value for your money. And I'll leave links down below with the best pricing on all the cameras we talk about. So let's start this video off with the Canon R6 Mark II, arguably one of the best hybrid cameras from Canon. The R6 Mark II has a 24 megapixel full frame sensor, which is plenty of resolution for retouching, and the sensor is also very good in low light up to 12,800 ISO when using full stops of ISO. And it also shoots 12 frames per second in mechanical shutter mode in 14-bit RAW, and an absolutely ridiculous 40 frames per second, which is faster than real-time video, but it is in 12-bit RAW. However, this is a really impressive speed for a camera like this, especially at this price point. But my favorite thing about the R6 Mark II has to be the autofocus. The autofocus is extremely fast and accurate, even with fast-moving subject matter, and it also has subject detection for animal, vehicles, and people. Now, when it comes to video, this is where the R6 Mark II really shines. It does 4K up to 60 frames per second without any sort of crop or compromise, and it's also downsampled from 6K, giving you 6K detail, but in a smaller, more manageable 4K file. And the R6 Mark II also has a dedicated slow motion mode that allows you to shoot Full HD up to 120 and 180 frames per second. Best of all, the R6 Mark II also has in-body stabilization, which works beautifully, and most Canon lenses also have stabilization built into the lenses, so you're going to get rock solid performance. And if you want to color grade your footage, you also have C-Log 3 in 10-bit color, which is going to give you a ton of flexibility. But you can take it a step further with 6K ProRes RAW recorded externally via an Atomos Ninja up to 60 frames per second. 6K 60p ProRes RAW in a camera like this, that's kind of incredible. And the body and design is exactly what you want in a camera like this. It's got a nice robust grip, beautiful button layout, everything is very ergonomically centered. On top of that, it also has dual SD card slots, a large battery for all-day shooting, but my favorite feature has to be the very bright and high-resolution EVF and the fully articulating touchscreen on the side. It's a very sharp touchscreen that's also very bright, and using this camera is wonderful for both photos and video. Now, the one gripe that I do have with the R6 Mark II is that it still uses a mini HDMI port, which is kind of a letdown, but unless you use an external monitor, you probably won't care. Apart from that, the R6 Mark II is designed wonderfully, and it's packed with so much power and delivers an amazing shooting experience. I personally have owned this camera for about 3 years and I absolutely love it. If you want a Canon hybrid camera that pretty much does it all, the R6 Mark II is definitely the way to go. But what if you want similar power and image quality for a lower price? And that brings me to not one, but two cameras, and the first one is the Canon R8. It shares the exact same sensor as the 24.2 megapixel full frame sensor in the Canon R6 Mark II. So you're getting the exact same image quality, low light performance, and everything else, but in a smaller, lighter body that's also a whole lot less money. And the autofocus is nearly identical with the exact same accuracy and speed, and with AI subject detection for animal, people, and cars, and in my opinion, you cannot tell them apart. But let's talk about the specs. The Canon R8 is slower in mechanical shutter mode and only shoots at 6 frames per second, but it retains all of the amazing image quality. And when it comes to electronic shutter, it shoots a ridiculous 40 frames per second, just like the R6 Mark II. And for video, you also get the same 4K 60 that is downsampled in Full HD at 120 and 180 frames per second, along with C-Log 3 in 10-bit color. However, the Canon R8 does not shoot RAW video, which is okay considering the price point, and the specs you are getting for this camera are pretty insane. Now, the main difference between the Canon R8 and the R6 Mark II is the smaller and lighter body with fewer button options, but it should be just fine for most casual and lifestyle shooters. The main trade-off in the Canon R8 is that it only has a single card slot that goes where the battery is, and the battery itself is pretty small. But for casual users, it should pretty much last you all day. And one thing that really surprised me is that the Canon R8 still has a high quality EVF and flip out screen, which is also touch sensitive with touch autofocus. And having such a high quality EVF and screen on a camera at this price point is really, really rare to see. So if you're someone that really wants that proper photography experience, the body and design of this camera are absolutely going to hold up, especially if you're a beginner. And if you actually wanted the R6 Mark II, but you don't want to spend the money, this is a great alternative. Now, what if you don't want a beginner style body and you still want a high resolution sensor? then you have to check out the Canon R7. This actually has a higher resolution 32 megapixel sensor, but it is a smaller APS-C size sensor, which is half the size of full frame. And don't forget, you can also add a speed booster to the Canon R7 and use full frame lenses and still get a full frame look. But the smaller sensor is actually better for wildlife and sports photographers. If you need to shoot something that's further away, the smaller sensor is going to give you a smaller field of view. Now, despite having a smaller sensor, the R7 is still really good in low light up to 32 and even 6400 ISO if you really want to push it. And the R7 also has in-body stabilization just like the R6 Mark II. And it also has the exact same speedy and accurate autofocus of the R6 Mark II and Canon R8. Now, in terms of specs and shooting speed, the R7 is actually really close to the R6 Mark II. You get about 15 frames per second in mechanical shutter mode and 30 frames per second electronic shutter mode. So this is a very good camera for action and sports. Plus, for video, you also get 4K up to 30 frames per second that is also downsampled from 7K, and you can also do 4K at 60 frames per second, however, this is not downsampled. And you also have Full HD at 120 frames per second. And the Canon R7 probably has the best design of any camera at this price point. It has a nice beefy grip with a robust button layout, alongside a dual SD card slot and a large Pro style battery. And it also has a fantastic EVF inside articulating screen that are high resolution, very bright, and extremely sharp. So you pretty much get all the bells and whistles of a pro style camera body, but for a lot less money with the Canon R7. So if you're a hybrid shooter who wants a pro style body with the same specs and features of a pro camera and you're okay with a smaller APS-C size sensor, the Canon R7 is definitely the way to go. Now, remember when I said the newest cameras are not always the best cameras, because you can also get the same 32 megapixel sensor from the R7 in an older DSLR style body with the Canon 9TD for an even lower price. The autofocus is a bit slower and there is no IBIS, but you still get 11 frames per second in photos, and you also get 4K up to 30 frames per second and Full HD up to 120 frames per second. Basically all of the highlights of the Canon R7, but in an older and cheaper body. And I personally love this camera. Now, if you're someone who's on a budget, I did not forget about you. And in fact, I have two options for you. And the first one is the Canon M50 Mark II. Despite being an older photo camera, it's actually a better photo camera than even the newer budget Canon cameras. It has a 24 megapixel sensor, which is still used today in the newer Canon cameras like the Canon R50, R50 V, R10. So this is a very good sensor. And despite being an older camera, the autofocus is also really good. It won't be quite as fast compared to the newest Canon cameras, but it does have face and eye tracking, which helps a lot, especially when you're filming people. The Canon M50 Mark II has a very small and compact body, which is perfect for travel shooters and beginners. And it also has a built-in flash and mic input, plus a really great EVF inside articulating screen, which is also 100% touch sensitive, even with touch autofocus. Now, because this is a budget camera, it does have a smaller battery, but it should last you pretty much all day for casual shooting. One trade-off with the Canon M50 is that because it's an older camera, it uses older lenses that Canon doesn't make anymore. But that's actually an advantage because most of those lenses can be bought really cheap, brand new, and even cheaper used. So you have a ton of lenses for very cheap to choose from. Now, the specs on the Canon M50 Mark II are a little bit interesting, and they might not be right for everyone. When it comes to photos, it can shoot 10 frames per second, which is plenty fast for beginners and those on a budget, and it's actually about as fast as even the newer Canon cameras that are only a little bit faster than the Canon M50. When it comes to video, it can do Full HD at 24 up to 60 frames per second and 120 frames per second in 720p, which is kind of low res. Now, if you're someone that wants 4K, honestly, the M50 is not a good 4K camera. There's a really big crop, and the quality honestly isn't great. The M50 is an amazing photo camera, but I do not recommend it for video. Now, if you need better video, the cameras you should be looking at are the Canon R50 and its newer big brother, the Canon R50 V. I know I said only one more camera, but I had to talk about the brand new R50 V. Both cameras have a very similar 24 megapixel sensor that you also see in the Canon M50. Like I said, it's a phenomenal sensor. But the R50 and the R50 V are much better in low light and have better autofocus because they have a newer processor. And the autofocus in the R50 and R50 V is basically just as good as the R6 Mark II, R8, or R7, and they also have subject detect modes for animal, people, and cars. However, both of these cameras only have digital stabilization, there is no IBIS. Now, when it comes to body and design, the two cameras are very different. The Canon R50 is designed for photos because it does have an EVF. The Canon R50 V, however, is designed for YouTubers and content creators. For video, both cameras can shoot 4K up to 30 frames per second, and it's also downsampled from 6K, just like the more expensive cameras. But the R50 V, however, can do 4K up to 60 frames per second, although it does have a pretty heavy crop. And both cameras can also shoot full HD up to 120 frames per second with no crop. The R50 V has HDR PQ mode in 10-bit color for color grading, which is okay for beginners. But if you really want to get serious about your color grading, the R50 V has a proper C-Log3 log profile that's also in 10-bit color. So if you're someone that's very serious about your color grading, the R50 V is a much better choice. The one trade-off that both the Canon R50 and the R50 V have is the photo performance. Both shoot pretty fast at 12 frames per second in mechanical shutter and 15 frames per second electronic shutter. However, if you want to get the full speed of these cameras, you have to shoot in JPEG mode. In JPEG mode, you can shoot for a pretty long time, about 28 to 50 photos in a row. But if you're shooting RAW, both cameras can only shoot 7 to 10 RAW photos in a row before this camera needs a break. So believe it or not, the older Canon M50 is actually a better photo camera, especially when it comes to RAW photos, although it does shoot at a slower 10 frames per second. So if you need a good all-round budget camera from Canon, the Canon R50 is the way to go. But if you're someone that's very focused on video and you want better video specs, the Canon R50 is a better choice. And if you mainly do photos and you don't care about video, the older, cheaper Canon M50 is actually the best choice. But if you want to make sure you get the right camera for you with the right pricing, make sure to check out the links in the description down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.